What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Going Through the Gospels. I am your host, Freddie, and we are just going to be going through the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, breaking it down section by section, just to find out more about Christ so that we can fall deeper in love with him. Guys, we're almost done. We're almost done with Matthew 2. We are going through Matthew 2, verses 16 through 18. It's when Herod kills the children. It's another short passage, so we can take our time with it. But that being said, we're not going to waste any time. Let's get into it. So it says, Then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem, and all in that region who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had ascertained from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what was spoken by the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping a loud lamentation. Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. Whew, that's rough. That is rough. Herod is plain mad because it was hoodwinked. He was bamboozled. He was tricked. Herod was waiting on his balcony every day, waiting to see some wise men coming back over the horizon. And he didn't see it, and he didn't see it. And I'd like to think that people knew they just weren't telling him because he was so mad all the time. He had a reputation for being a very harsh guy. So I like to think that he had to ask somebody what had happened. And when they told him what went down, he freaked out. Okay, the jealousy that he showed in taking the wise men to the side and saying, "Hey, when you find the kid, let me know." Same thing applies, but this time it's amplified because not only is his authority being undermined, but now this child who he's already jealous of is already being respected and listened to and valued more than him. So he's furious. And I mean, let's be real. This Herod's a harsh man. And I didn't know this until I looked into it, that Herod's actually an Edomite. And if you go back to 1 Samuel, when David is fleeing from Saul, and he stops at the temple to get some supplies. And now the priests help him because they don't know that he's actually running from the king. And when the king finds out and he goes to the priests say, "I don't know what's going on." And Saul says, "Yes, you did." And he turns to his guards and say, "I want you to kill the priests." And the guards are like, "Well, we're not going to kill the priests because they are, the elected men of God. So we're not going to touch them." But there was an Edomite along with them named Doeg, Doeg. I may not be saying it right. I say it Doeg. Doeg, he was like, "Cool, bet I'm going to give me a sword." And he not only killed the priests, but then he went and killed the priests' families. And a very, very angry people, apparently. So Herod comes from a very angry line of individuals. And he was so angry that he did not want to go out and just find the child himself. But he takes the time to figure out, okay, this is when the wise men said that the star came up. So the child, Jesus around that time was going to be around the age of 1. So he says, well, let's be safe. Any child under the age of 2, take him out. And it's shocking that a man would go to that length and have such a disregard for the lives of the people he is supposed to be lording over. But actually, at that time, Herod had a reputation of killing infants. He actually killed 2 of his sons prior to this, and 1 of his sons after this. So Herod, he has a terrible track record, and so we see him taking steps that go beyond reason. But if we look at his history and we look at his past, it kind of goes in line with his character. So it's surprising, but it's not that surprising. It's hard to reconcile because what he does is so heinous to me. But okay, so he makes sure that he is going to get the child that he wants because Jesus was supposed to be 1, and he said any child under 2 must be killed. Not just in Bethlehem, but he says in the regions, okay, in all that region, which means the coastline, the villages around it, every child in that area, 2 years or under, they're gone. They're gone. And so what's crazy about this is Jesus is gone by this point. At this point, okay? He's in Egypt with Joseph and Mary, and nobody else knows that. Nobody else knows that. So Herod goes ahead and he kills all the boys. And by doing this, he does 2 things. Number 1, he creates the first martyrs of the Christian church. These are the first accounted individuals who die for the sake of Christ's church. Innocent lives that were taken because someone was trying to take the throne that is rightfully Christ. I had never thought of that before, but that's a very beautiful way to look at this. Is that these young men, even though their lives were taken by such hatred and jealousy, their lives were for a cause, for the actual Church of Christ that Christ actually came to redeem, which is beautiful. Okay, so that's the first thing. I'm not saying killing children is beautiful, but don't twist it. Just don't twist it. But number 2, it ensures that Jesus was the only man that could have come from the town of Bethlehem during the time when this star was said to have been present. If anybody in that period, a man that said he came from that period, and Jesus was saying, I'm the Messiah, I came from Bethlehem, I came from this specific period of time, the heavens, told of my coming. Someone else could have said, well, I was born at that time too. Maybe I'm the Messiah. Jesus is the only boy that came out of that region. Jesus is the only one that survived this. He's the only one that could fulfill what the prophets had spoken in the Old Testament. So none but Jesus could ever hold such a title. He's from Bethlehem. The angel tells him to go to Egypt. He goes to Egypt. All the boys die in Bethlehem. So he's the only one that can say he comes from Bethlehem. The prophecy says the Messiah will come out of Egypt. He comes back from Egypt. He goes where? To Nazareth. The child was said to be born from come from Nazareth as well. He was a Nazarene. What? Jesus is fulfilling every single prophecy that has been laid out. And he's the only one who could, because 1, he's the only one alive from that period from Bethlehem. He's the only one who was able to come back from Egypt, and he was a Nazarene. I mean, the fact that all of this has worked out perfectly in history is divine to me. That's divine intervention. So I just think that's the coolest thing ever. But Jesus landing in the town of Nazareth when he comes back is there's some really cool points to be made. Nazareth, being a Nazarene, one there are 2 things that could be said about. 1, it was a point of distinction. That he was. It said that Jesus. I think being a Nazarene was said to be meaning like you're a branch, and in the Old Testament it said that Jesus was going to be a branch coming from the root of Jesse. for the nation of Israel. So he fulfills that. But also being a Nazarene was said to be kind of a demoralizing, putting down almost. It said that they were despised, and it really wasn't a good thing to have. And so we see Christ coming as a king, but also as one who, even from birth, is people are trying to kill him. He is despised. He is rejected, like the prophet Isaiah said in Isaiah 53. But ultimately, he came to be a branch. He came to be a root from dry land, a branch from the line of Jesse, which falls from his lineage that we talked about in chapter 1. And all of these things happen to fulfill what the prophets had spoken. And not only that, but also in 17 and 18, the I'll say infanticide of all of the young men in Israel fulfilled what the prophet Jeremiah spoke when he said, the voice was heard in Ramah weeping a loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. It was a hard thing that happened, but everything that has happened so far in the beginning of the book of Matthew has been to fulfill the prophecy of the Old Testament, or the Old Testament prophets. Sorry. I had to get it out, but I got it out. So it outlines what was said by the prophet Jeremiah in Jeremiah 31:15, and it outlines the pain felt by such a loss of life, by all the mothers and the parents in Bethlehem. However, if you look deeper, the prophecy about the bitter weeping in Ramah was actually foreshadowing of the greatest joy, because it said, thy work shall be rewarded, and there is hope in the end. Thy work has been rewarding, there's hope in the end. And so we see that the hope here that's actually found in Christ is powerful enough to overcome any evil. Evil that's meant to wipe Christ off the face of the earth. It overcame that. Christ would sacrifice himself as the root of Jesse, as the despised one, for the sake of his nation, so that he could bring hope and salvation and joy to the nation, so that all the suffering, all the pain that had been felt up until that point will be wiped away, that our sin would no longer be held against us. So the hope that's found in Christ is powerful enough to overcome any evil. And I want you to remember that in this passage. Even though this is such a heavy 3 verses, and it doesn't seem like there's a lot of hope in it, the deeper you look into it, you just see God's hand is still guiding it. Even though there are rough patches, you may be in a period where you don't understand the rough patch. There may be seasons where, we see things happening and we're suffering and we don't know why. But trust in that there's hope in Christ Jesus. And it's powerful enough to overcome anything that we're going through, because even though these parents lost their children, it came with a greater hope, with the salvation that comes through Jesus Christ. So guys, I just want to lay that out there. This is Matthew 2, verses 16 through 18. I hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, or like and share. And said that way out of order, but feel free to check out the Men of Means podcast. Our Instagram is at Men of Means with a Z. Men of Means podcast on Facebook, and we are on Ramp Radio every Friday at 6 p.m. and write for the Ascending Thoughts blog, so check them out. It's ascendingthoughts.wordpress.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in, and I will talk to you next week.